Hello, I have another story for you, another ghostly tale. This one involves a clairvoyant, a fortune teller, a medium, a mystic, whatever term you wish to use to describe someone who communicates with those who reside beyond the grave. The story takes place back in the 1980s, before there were such things as computers and mobile phones. I hope you find it interesting. Karen was 30-ish years old, never had much luck in her life. She'd never had any money, wasn't at all lucky in love. And a friend of hers, Sally, one day she said, "Look, why don't you go to a fortune teller, a clairvoyant, and find out what your future holds?" "I'm not doing that," Karen said. "There's no way I'm going to a fortune teller. Besides, I couldn't afford it." "I'll pay," Sally said. "I'll pay for you to go. What have you got to lose? It's not far. You can walk there." Sally added the part about walking there because she knew that Karen's car was off the road. Karen couldn't afford to get it going. It had failed the MOT, needed quite a bit of money spending on it. Karen thought about it for a minute or two and then, OK, nothing to lose, why not? She'd phoned and made an appointment with Gwendolyn, the fortune teller, and she arrived at the lady's little cottage on time one evening and rang the doorbell. "Come in," Gwendolyn said. She was a little old lady with grey curly hair, probably in her mid-70s. Karen was determined not to give anything away as she followed the lady into the lounge and sat down. "I'm not going to give anything away," she thought, as Gwendolyn smiled at her and said, "Now you're not married, are you?" Karen noticed that Gwendolyn was looking at her left hand. She hadn't got a wedding ring on. That was a bit of a giveaway. "No, I'm not married," Karen replied. "You're not very happy," Gwendolyn said. Well, that was pretty obvious, Karen thought. She'd never been very happy. "You're right there," she said. "I'm not very happy, never have been." "You're going to come into some money, my dear," Gwendolyn said with a smile. "Oh, that would be nice," Karen returned. "How much and when?" "No, it doesn't work like that," Gwendolyn said. "I can't tell you how much or when it will be, but you will be coming into some money, I can tell you that." Karen wasn't particularly impressed as Gwendolyn rambled on about her having good health and living a long and happy life. And when Gwendolyn said, "You'll be meeting a man," Karen shook her head negatively. "A tall, dark stranger. I knew it," she said, somewhat sarcastically. "I doubt that he's tall or dark," Gwendolyn said with a chuckle. "You don't really want to be here, do you, dear?" "To be honest," she said, "I didn't want to come here. It was a friend of mine's idea. I just didn't want to come here. It's not something I've ever done, and with all due respect to you, I don't believe in any of this nonsense." "I'll tell you what we'll do," Gwendolyn said. "You go away now, and when you've come into some money, come back and see me, and we'll carry on from there." "OK," Karen said. "OK, can't go wrong with that. That's fine. Thanks for seeing me, and sorry I've been a bit negative, but you have to understand I've never been happy. Everything in my life has always gone wrong for me, and I certainly can't see myself coming into money or meeting a decent man in the future." "Just before you go," Gwendolyn said, closing her eyes and looking down, I'm just getting something about this man you're going to meet. He will only be after one thing, Karen. Be warned, he will only be after one thing." "Well, aren't most men?" Karen said with a laugh. "I'm not talking about that, dear. I'm not talking about that. He will be after your money." Karen didn't say anything. She didn't want to be negative again in front of the old lady, but she did think, well, that's not a problem because I haven't got any money. As Gwendolyn saw Karen to the door, she said, "One last thing, dear. Don't tell him you've got any money. I can't stress that enough. Do not tell him that you've got money." "I won't," Karen said. "I won't. Don't worry." And with that, she left the old lady's cottage. As the months passed, Karen became deeper in debt. She was behind with her rent. Her car was still off the road, and she was becoming extremely despondent until one morning, about a year later, She had a letter from a solicitor. She'd been left some money. She was over the moon as she read the letter. It was from an aunt that she hadn't seen for many, many years. Her aunt had passed away and actually left some money to Karen in her will. I can get my car on the road, she thought. I can catch up with the rent. I can pay off my debts. Gwendolyn's words filtered into Karen's mind as she thought about the money. You're coming into some money, my dear. She was right, Karen thought happily. She was right. Once the money was securely in her bank and she'd paid off her debts, she wandered down the road to a little pub that she'd never been to before. The pub garden backed onto the river. She'd never been there because she could never afford to go out drinking, or go out anywhere, come to that. She sat by the river with a glass of wine, watching the swans. For the first time in her life she felt relaxed and happy. The money she'd been left was a small fortune to her, and it really had brightened up her life. She'd not seen her parents since they'd moved abroad when she was in her teens. She was an only child. She had no aunts or uncles as far as she was aware, apart from the one that had left her the money. She'd always felt very much alone in the world, until now. There was a possibility, if Gwendolyn was correct, that she'd meet a man. He'll be after your money, she recalled Gwendolyn saying. Well, that's all right. I won't tell him I've got any money, she thought happily as she sipped her wine. It was a couple of weeks later when Karen was sitting by the river, enjoying another summer evening with a glass of wine, when a man approached her. Mind if I join you? He said. I suppose so, Karen said. If you want to, I don't mind. Oh, I won't join you if you don't want me to. Sorry if I've interrupted. No, she said. No, go on, sit down. Sorry, I'm just enjoying the peace and quiet. I won't disturb your peace and quiet, he said, sitting opposite her. My name's Mike. I'm Karen, she said. Sorry if I appeared to be rude, but I do like sitting here by the river on my own, just watching the swans and the ducks. As do I, he said, as do I. Gwendolyn's words echoed around Karen's mind. Not necessarily tall or dark. He wasn't tall, and he wasn't dark. He had brown hair, fairly pale skin, but he was pretty good looking, Karen observed. He was about 10 years older than Karen, and she couldn't help but repeatedly wonder whether this was the stranger that was only after one thing, her money. As the weeks passed, she put all thoughts to one side. She'd been getting on very well with Mike, seeing him on a semi-regular basis. He told her about his business that he was running. He was a successful businessman. She decided that as far as Mike was concerned, Gwendolyn was wrong. It must be another stranger. But Mike seemed genuine. He was a nice chap. They got on really well, and she couldn't see that he was after her money at all. How could he be after my money, Karen thought. He doesn't know I've got any. One evening they'd been out for a meal and gone on to a local bar, and Karen had a little bit too much to drink. I've come into some money, she blurted out. Really? Mike said. That's interesting. He bought her another drink and asked her what she was going to do with this money she'd been left. Well, I've paid off some debt, she said. I've got my car back on the road, and the rest is in the bank. I'm saving it. She sobered up quickly when he said, Karen, I've got a proposition. I think we've got a future together. I don't know about you. I know we haven't known each other that long, but I think we've got a good future together. Her eyes widened. Was this marriage? She wondered. Was he going to ask her to marry him? Carry on, she said excitedly. Well, as I said, I think we've got a future together, and I think it might be an idea to make some plans. Yes, she said, yes. I've been thinking of expanding the business now for some months. If I could open a second office, I could double my turnover. So this is my proposition. Would you like to invest some money in my company? Karen felt her heart sink. Invest money in his company? Immediately Gwendolyn's words rattled round her mind. He's only after one thing, my dear, your money. Well, I don't know, she finally said. I'd have to think about it. Oh, that's fine, he said. Yes, think about it, of course. I'm just thinking that as we've got a future together, then you investing in my company and helping me with my business, I'm certain that within a couple of years the return on your money would be quite amazing. In fact, I'm pretty sure you double it. Karen felt a wave of despondency wash over her as he grinned at her. Are you talking about shares in your company? She asked him. No, not shares. No, not shares. I'm only a small company. Oh, a partnership. Do you mean a partnership? No, not exactly, Karen, not exactly, no. I'll have to speak to my financial advisor, she finally said. She hadn't got a financial advisor, but she thought it sounded professional. Oh, financial advisor, he echoed. Yes, I suppose that's a good idea. Well, I'm sure being in business yourself, you would agree that that's a very good idea, she said. Yes, of course, of course. The only thing is, Karen, I've been offered this other office and it's ideally suited for my needs. And I only have a couple of days. That's the trouble, a couple of days. Don't worry, she said, I will speak to my financial advisor in the morning and I will phone you when I've done so. Oh, okay, he said. Okay, he didn't seem very happy, she noted. Yes, that's the best thing to do. Okay, I'll wait to hear from you then tomorrow. Karen's thoughts of being in love, of the future, of marriage, perhaps having children, faded fast as she looked at him. Was he genuine? She wondered as she again recalled Gwendolyn's words. Perhaps Gwendolyn was wrong. Perhaps he was genuine. He was a nice chap. She got on well with him. She'd been looking forward to a future with him. Gwendolyn must be wrong, surely. Mike phoned her the following morning. I know you were going to phone me, he said, but I'm just wondering, it's getting a little bit urgent. Have you spoken to your chap yet? Not yet, Karen said. No, not yet, Mike. It's earlier. I said I'd phone you. Oh, yeah, yes, of course, yes. Okay, I'll wait then. I'll wait for the phone call. With that, he hung up. No mention of, I enjoyed the evening with you last night. We must do it again. His only concern was money. As the hours passed, Karen decided not to phone him, and he rang her in the evening, early evening. Sorry to pester you, Karen, he said, but I really do need to know about this money. Oh, it's dreadful, she said. You won't believe this. My financial advisor's away on holiday. I can't believe it. Oh, away on holiday? Oh, no. Oh, that's all we need. I'm running out of time, Karen. Do you really need to speak to him? I mean, we've got a future together, as I said. Do you really need to speak to someone? Don't you trust me? I'm not too sure, she thought. I'm not too sure at all. Let's meet, she said. Let's meet at the pub. What's the time now? We're 5 o'clock. I'll see you there at 7. We'll talk about it. Okay, we'll meet there at 7. All right. And with that, he hung up. No goodbye, nothing. He just put the phone down. He was already at the pub when Karen arrived. He looked nervous, agitated, annoyed. We've got to sort this out, he said, as Karen joined him at the table by the river. We will, she said. We'll sort it out tomorrow. I've got a plan. What we'll do, I'll come to your office tomorrow morning. He looked shocked. Tomorrow, I don't even know where your office is, she said, frowning at him. I don't think you've ever told me, have you? Oh, no, probably not. It's in town, and yes, it's in town. The thing is, Karen, and I don't even know where you live, she said. We've never been to your place. You've been to mine. We've never been to yours. Well, that's true. We've had no need to, really, have we? I mean, it's out of town. It's quite a way to go. There's no need to. But now listen, tomorrow, I'm out all day seeing clients. That's the problem. I don't think you really need to come to my office. Oh, yes, I do, she thought, now convinced that Gwendolyn was correct. Oh, that reminds me, he said. Your flat, it's rented, isn't it? Yes, Karen nodded her head. It's rented. You don't have any property, do you? Any other property? No, property? No, I don't own any property. Why do you ask? Oh, no. Just thinking aloud. Don't worry, just thinking aloud. As he rambled on about investing money and his plans for the future and how she could double her investment within a couple of years, she sipped her wine and realised that Gwendolen was right. He was only after one thing, her money. Why on earth was he asking whether she owned property? All part of the scam, she thought. She felt sad, she felt despondent, and she wondered what to do, what to say next. "Sorry to interrupt you, Mike," she finally said, pushing her empty wine glass across the table towards him. Again he looked agitated as he looked at his watch. "You want another drink?" he said. "If you don't mind. I'm in rather a hurry tonight, Karen. I've got to see a client. Look, I'll get you a drink, but I won't be able to stay." "Don't worry about the drink," she said. "No, it's all right. I'll get myself a drink. You hurry off and we'll talk about this tomorrow." "Okay," he sighed as he stood up. "I'll give you a ring tomorrow." He didn't phone her the following day or the day after. Karen knew that he'd lost interest in her now that he couldn't get his hands on her money. Karen had another letter from the solicitor. She was horrified when she read the words, "We regret to inform you that we've made a mistake." Oh no, she thought, they want the money back. They can't have the money back. Then she read on. "Your aunt also left you her house." Karen read that sentence several times. She couldn't believe it. She hadn't seen her aunt for many, many years, but she did remember her parents taking her there when she was younger. If it was the same house, which she was sure it would be, it was a huge place on the outskirts of town. She remembered walking up the front path when she was a child and thinking that it was a mansion. Her auntie lived in a mansion. She read the letter again, and then she phoned the solicitor. He confirmed that she was in fact now the owner of the house, and if she'd call into the office, they'd sort out the paperwork and he'd give her the keys. The solicitor apologised profusely for the mistake, saying that he couldn't understand it. It was as if the will was rewritten overnight, he said with a chuckle. "So I do apologise. I really don't know what happened. It's most uncanny." She thanked the solicitor and, clutching the keys, left his office and hurried to her aunt's house, to her house. Letting herself in, she stood in the large hallway and looked about. The hat stand, the umbrella stand, the memories came flooding back. She recognised everything. Her aunt obviously hadn't changed anything in years. The reason she hadn't seen her aunt since she was a child is because there was a dispute between Karen's parents and her aunt and uncle at the time, who had passed away many years ago. Her mother had said there was a disagreement, but she never explained what it was about. All Karen knew was that no one spoke to the aunt anymore and the aunt didn't speak to anyone. And then her parents moved abroad when she was in her teens. Looking back, she wished she'd gone to visit her aunt. She felt guilty now. Her aunt had left her the money, the house, and she'd not once bothered to go and visit her. Sitting on the sofa in the lounge, she again looked about her and felt guilty. She should have visited her aunt, she thought. The dispute, the disagreement, whatever it had been, it was nothing to do with her. It was between her parents and her aunt. Hearing a noise, she leapt up from the sofa and looked about. "Is anyone there?" she said. "Hello, is there anyone there?" "Who's that?" Karen said. "Who's that? Where are you? Show yourself." Her hands trembling, she went out into the hall. "Who's there?" she said, wondering whether someone had broken in. Going through to the kitchen, she checked the back door. It was locked. The French doors in the dining room were locked. She thought she must have imagined it, hearing whispering voices in her head. She must have imagined it. She went upstairs and looked around the bedrooms. The main bedroom, which was her aunt's room, was exactly as her aunt had left it. She'd no idea whether the old lady had gone into a nursing home or whether she'd passed away at home. She knew nothing about it. But she did feel her presence as she stood by the bed. "Are you there, Auntie?" she said, feeling somewhat silly as she smiled and looked at herself in the mirror. "Are you there, Auntie? Can you hear me?" No response, nothing. It was her imagination, she was sure. There was a lot to do, she thought, as she locked up the house and headed towards Gwendolyn's cottage. Move all her things from her flat into the house, hand in her notice at the flat. She wanted to move in straight away. She wanted to get into her aunt's house, into her house, that very day. Knocking on Gwendolyn's door, she smiled as the old lady greeted her. "I'm Karen," she said excitedly. "Do you remember me from about a year ago?" "I'm afraid not, dear. I've seen a lot of people in a year. What was it you wanted? You don't have an appointment?" "No, but I do need to speak to you urgently." "Well, I do have an hour or so free if you'd like to come in." Karen followed her into the lounge and sat down. "You told me that I'd meet a man and he would be after my money. You told me I'd be left some money," Karen began excitedly. "Just give me a minute to think, dear. Just give me a second." She closed her eyes and looked down. Yes, it's coming back to me now. "There was a man, he was after your money. Did he take it?" No, Karen said. "Because of your warning, I was aware of what he was after. And what else has happened, dear? You came into some money." Yes, I came into some money. I met the man. But now—" "Wait a minute," Gwendolyn interrupted. "There's someone here." "There's someone here. She was trying to talk to you." "Have you had anyone trying to talk to you?" Karen frowned and shook her head. "Tried to talk to me? What do you mean? When? Where?" "Your aunt was trying to talk to you, dear. Weren't you aware of that?" Karen recalled the whispers in the house. "There was, yes. I heard whispering in my aunt's house." "That was it, dear. That was it. That was Amy, your aunt. That is her name, isn't it?" "That's right," Karen said, amazed by Gwendolyn's revelation. "Your aunt was trying to talk to you. She was welcoming you. 'Welcome home,' she says. 'Welcome home.' That makes sense to you, doesn't it, Karen?" "That makes all the sense in the world," Karen said, with a huge grin on her pretty face. "Will you thank my aunt for me? Thank her for all she's done." "She can hear you, dear. She's nodding her head. She's smiling." "Oh, wait a minute. Marriage. Children. Your aunt says it's a lovely house to bring up children. You've got that to look forward to." "Marriage?" Karen gasped. "Children? Well, that's fantastic. I don't know what to say. That's what I've wanted all my life." "Well, you've got that to look forward to, dear." "I can't believe any of this. I can't believe it. Money, a house." She gazed into Gwendolyn's eyes. "If it wasn't for you," she said, "I would have trusted that man. I would have lost my money and possibly lost the house. Thank you both so much." "One more thing," Gwendolyn said. "Hang on, one more thing. Your aunt is chuckling." "What's that?" "Oh, I see. Yes, she's laughing." "Ha, that's fine. Don't worry," she says. "I won't be in the house whispering at you. I will leave you in peace." As Gwendolyn showed Karen out, Karen thanked her again for all the help she'd given her. "You're more than welcome, dear. You're more than welcome." The sun shining as she walked along the street, heading back to her mansion, Karen knew that happiness lay ahead.